Hi everyone, and welcome to the Certified Recruiting Specialist video series. Today we'll be going over another basic of recruiting, screening. First, let's go over a definition. Screening is the process of investigating, researching, and measuring skill sets, abilities, and how much of an overall fit a potential candidate is for a client or a company an HR team or recruiter is working for. The goal of screening is to essentially funnel potential employees through assessment tools to weed out ill-equipped or incompatible individuals. This can save time, resources, and shorten the process of interviewing at the very beginning. It is also a goal of screening to confirm an employee is actually qualified for a position. Another is to identify any potential safety risks, including threats to safety, physical safety in the workplace, and the security of data the employee might handle. Employee screening is also designed to spot personality traits which may be beneficial or problematic. In the past, screening was a long, drawn-out, and expensive process that was something only done once a candidate was actually offered a position. Now, however, the internet and other quick sources of screening make it easier and more efficient, while it already made more sense, to move the screening process to the front of the line and become the first hoop for applicants to jump through. While screening is legal, there are a few screening and testing stipulations to really pay attention to if you are an HR recruiter or working for a recruiting company. First, the tests that you use must be relevant, which, for example, if you're testing someone through an aptitude test for typing speed, you'd better not be interviewing them for a construction job that requires no use of a computer. So this means that it's not only relevant, but also job applicable. Testing someone on a point that is not applicable to a job can be very detrimental and can really increase and encourage lawsuits and legal implications to occur. Additionally, you are not able to test one group of individuals and not test the other, which is the non-discriminatory factor here. But it also has a dual meaning. If you are going to test for a specific physical trait such as handicaps or gender, you are probably going to get into some trouble by the Equal Employment Opportunity Council. So your exams or your assessments must not include things that discriminate for those traits. That can also include things like gender, national origin, or religion. And lastly, the exam must be professionally developed. The Equal Employment Opportunity Council Guidelines on Employment Testing Procedures, which was issued on August 24th of 1966, provides the following standards. The Commission accordingly interprets professional developed ability tests, quote unquote, to mean a test which fairly measures the knowledge or skills required by the particular job or class of jobs which the applicant seeks, or which fairly affords the employer a chance to measure the applicant's ability to perform a particular job or class of jobs. To really avoid any sort of legal or litigation necessities that may come through due to your poor judgment or perhaps your unknowingly discriminatory tests, it's really wise to seek legal counsel and to see what best steps would be for you to take. Some caveats to screening, however, is that you can't rely solely on screening results. Say people make it through your first screening of education or distance away from work, say that they need to be an Oregon resident, things like that. Be sure to look at the whole picture and evaluate who these people are both in person and on paper before you hire them. Most hiring decisions are made from the interview, but often result in bad hires. The solution? Screen potential interviews. The problem with simply weeding individuals out, however, is that the entire picture is not seen. While aptitude tests may be taken and passed with flying colors, the applicant may be lacking an even more important component for a position, like personality or the ability to be a leader. Things like this can really be lost in translation when looking at what's done on paper, such as a score through a typing test or a score through a personality test, but it really all comes out in person. So know that just because someone passed really well through the screening process doesn't mean that they are the right fit. Like I mentioned before, assessments play a large role in the screening process, which allows companies to see what potential hires know about a certain subject, can do in terms of technical abilities, etc. And assessments can also include things like drug tests, credit card history, employment, past education, and it can also screen for complex skills, aptitudes, and behaviors. Using the evidence-based assessment, which can be found in your Adler text, include the 5 following steps. The first is to evaluate all candidates for every position in comparison to the real job needs. This means that the performance profile here would set a standard. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in the next slide about measuring assessments. The second is to not give any interviewers other than the hiring manager a complete yes or no voting right. Instead, assign each interviewer a subset of factors to evaluate, giving each one an objective look at each candidate. Assess all candidates using a formal assessment tool across the predictors of job success using a clear ranking system. This can include things like overall technical competency, motivation for required work, overall team skills, problem solving, environment and culture, as well as trends of growth. And it can also include characters and values, potential, and overall team skills. Next is to conduct a formal debriefing session with all members of the hiring team actively participating. Submitting written notes is not as effective as a conference call or meeting, so really get together with people who were involved in that interviewing process. And lastly, generalities, gut feelings, and intuition are really unacceptable inputs for ranking a candidate. Facts, dates, details, and specific examples must justify the ranking for each factor. Assessments should really focus on the things that are required in a position. Desired criteria can be assessed for in the interviewing process. As recruiters, your task may simply be to implement the criteria or questions the client is looking for answers from, and to pass or fail those that take the assessment. But as many people know, and as Pritchard explains in his 101 Strategies text for recruiting success, you really have to take into account the after effects of your screening process. You need to be involved in the entire hiring process, as your input and your screening can really make or break the success of hiring someone. So when looking at results, you must have a benchmark to meet and a sort of baseline on which to base your analysis of others also taking assessments or tests. These should be based on the job itself and what the job duties entail. And these can be set by the company, or they can give you specific characteristics that they desire, and you can set the pass or fail criteria. And these should be based on the job itself and, again, what the job duties entail. This must be done in either of the assessments, like the ones we went over in the previous slide, but it is even more important to have when conducting things like personality assessments. You must have a benchmark for which traits you deem successful and which are not. Screening is very vital. It's a vital component to finding the right potentials in an applicant pool, but more importantly, it helps to prevent bad hires, which are the people who can't or won't do the work, don't fit into your culture, or can't get along with others. This problem is usually caused by overvaluing presentation skills and making a hasty decision, which is usually done through the interviewing process. Next is mismatched hires, people who are competent to do the work but don't want to do it. This problem is caused by a lack of understanding of real job needs and overvaluing the depth of technical competency during the interview. Next is incomplete hires, people who can do parts of the work well but not everything. This problem is caused by interviewers who overvalue a few traits and then assume global competency across all job needs. This is also referred to as bad intuition. And lastly are non-hires. These are the great people we didn't hire. Sometimes good people get nervous during the interview or give dumb short answers. Some great people, even top salespeople, don't make good first impressions. Sometimes great people are unimpressed by an unprofessional interviewing process and shut down. So really screening your employees before you get to the interviewing process, and these 4 things can be prevented by using the evidence-based assessment, which is what you do during the interviewing process. You can really avoid these problems and avoid hiring people who you don't see being a fit for you in the long run, and whom you are not a fit for them in the long run as well. So interviewing is a give and take, and as an employee, you need to remember that being hired is really based on them seeing you as a fit, and you taking the position is really based on you feeling as a fit for their company. So thanks for following along. If you have any questions, email me at ashley@businesstraining.com.